everyone, I'm Sam.
And I'm Kaitlyn.
And this is Team Get Ovary It.
We're an all-female team participating in the greatest motoring adventure on the planet,
the Mongol Rally.
We'll be driving 10,000 miles across mountains, deserts, and unknown terrain.
And along the way, we hope to spread our feminist and environmental ideals.
Join us here as we share our stories, thoughts, and interviews as we get ready for the Mongol Rally 2021.
Welcome back, everyone.
Hey!
We had so much fun in our last episode that we're going to continue on the thread of getting to know us, but this time we're going to be asking some more penetrating questions with possibly more profound answers.
That last episode made us realize that there's a lot about each other that we still don't know, despite our years of friendship. So before we are trapped in a small car together for weeks and weeks, we're going to try to get to know each other a little better.
So this is how it works. Kaitlyn and I came up with some questions independently, so we have no idea what they're going to be. All of our answers will be totally off the cuff and honest. Should make for an interesting episode, so let's get started, shall we?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'll go first. So my first question for you, Kaitlyn, is if you were to open your purse for us right now, what would we find inside of it?
Oh, okay. Well, it's winter. So in my purse right now, there's a pair of gloves. And there's
Canadian gloves?
No, but they are red.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on theme.
Yeah, a pair of red gloves. Wet wipes. Because those are essential. And it's really funny, the wet wipes thing, because when I was younger, my mom always carried around wet wipes, and I thought it was really strange to do that. And I was like, what am I, a baby? Like, why do you carry wet wipes? But then I moved to Korea, and like in Korea, wet wipes are so standard. Whenever you go to a restaurant, they give you wet wipes to like wash your hands with. Yeah, and so since I moved to Korea, I find like they're really useful. Like you spill something and it's just easy to clean up, or like to wash your hands or something. So anyway, so there's wet wipes, hand sanitizer, of course, for coronavirus times. And in my purse right now, I think there's also a book.
Oh, what book?
So this book I've been carrying around for a couple of years. There's a bit of history to it. So since I was 12, I've been reading this really long fantasy series called The Wheel of Time. And the author is a guy named Robert Jordan, or I guess was a guy named Robert Jordan. He passed away. But I remember there was a kind of rivalry between Robert Jordan readers and this author. What's his name? Wait a minute, let me grab the book because I forget.
I remember this book, though. I remember it. I think it was under your bed.
Oh, you remember
the Wheel of apartment?
Yeah, the Wheel of Time one, which I still haven't finished.
Okay.
This is the other one. What's his name? Terry Goodkind. Because they have it's like a very similar, it's the same kind of stuff. It's like, a big epic fantasy journey sort of thing. And there's a lot of books in the series. So there was this kind of rivalry between Terry Goodkind readers and Robert Jordan readers. And I remember I had this friend in high school that loved Terry Goodkind, and he would be like, oh, it's so much better than Robert Jordan. Duh, duh, duh. So I found this book. So it's the first one of that series in a used bookstore back in Canada 5 years ago, and I bought it, but I just haven't read it. So I did start reading it recently, and it's okay. I mean, I'm only in the first little bit. I think the story's kind of interesting, so I'll finish this eventually. But that's the book that's in my purse. Yeah,
very nice.
And that's it. That's all that's in there.
Okay, nothing too revealing yet.
Not yet. I'm sure we'll get there. All right, so my turn. I'll ask you one. Speaking of books, because I know you love books.
Yes.
You love reading.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, who is your favorite author? And I guess, can you tell us a little bit about what they write?
Whoa. Okay, I have a favorite author that's been my favorite author for a while. I don't know. So here's the thing. I think a favorite author that, when you have a childhood favorite author that just sort of carries through life. I don't know if at any given point I would pick their book up off the shelf, but they have been my favorite for a very long time. So I'll say them. It's J.D. Salinger.
Okay.
Who is famous for writing Catcher in the Rye. And actually, I hated J.D. Salinger when I was a kid, so it's not really a childhood love. But I have loved his work for a long time. And the reason is because the first time I read Catcher in the Rye, I absolutely hated it. Couldn't stand it. Honestly, wanted to wanted to throw a book at Holden and just like shake him and say like, get your life together. What are you doing?
Same. He's such a brat. Or I thought he was a brat when I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the reaction I had. So that was my sophomore year of high school. And I didn't look at the book again until I was in college. And it was for one of my first writing courses in college. And I think it was a course about coming of age novels.
Hmm.
And so obviously you read the quintessential coming of age Catcher in the Rye. And I remember being like, oh God, like I don't want to read this again. But I read it, and when I read it was shortly after both my uncle and my grandfather had passed away in
Mm.
close proximity to each other. And so it was sort of like I think, those were the first two people that were close to me that I had lost in my life. And so it was like the first time I was experiencing that sense of loss and those emotions. And then a month later, I read Catcher in the Rye, which is really all about loss and like losing someone you're close to and feeling like that loss of innocence, that loss of like, a sense that like everything is good in the world. Cause it's the first time that you really like realize like, oh yeah, shit, like bad stuff can happen. And so I read it after losing them. And I remember reading like the one scene where I think Holden's describing his younger brother's baseball mitt in detail. And I just like was like sobbing in my bedroom.
Hmm.
And it was like the first book, or maybe not the first book, but the one that like during that time period in my life just like really hit me emotionally. And then for years after, and even up till this day, I will read it like one or two times a year. And I've read all of his other work. I just think Salinger is sort of like a once in a lifetime author in terms of like being able to connect to not everyone, because not everyone connects to him, but like the people that do connect with his writing like really connect. And he sort of can explain parts of human existence in a way that I haven't seen any other author be able to do. So
Hmm.
that's my favorite author, I'd say.
Yeah, because I know because when you were in Korea, you had that copy of Catcher in the Rye with
Mm-hmm.
you always. And I know I remember I think I said this a couple years ago. It's like, oh, I got to give that book another try. Like after listening to you describe how your I guess opinion of the book has changed over the years. Because I think that's really true. Because like when I think it was required reading when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then so I read it, and yeah, like the whole time I just thought he was such a brat, and I was like, oh, get over yourself, Holden. Like.
Yeah. And it is like, unless like I think it's like one of those things, it's like if you don't relate to Holden like on an
Mhm.
emotional level, like if you don't sort of like empath I always have trouble with that word, emphasize and empathize.
Empathize. Yeah, it's hard.
I always mix them up. But if you don't empathize with Holden and that like you can't see where he's coming from, or like maybe like you feel differently, then it's like his actions don't really make sense. And you're just like, why are you not doing your homework? Like, I don't understand. And like, as like the goody two shoes nerd that I was like, do your homework.
Mhm.
But I think it's a book that like, and I think like, not everyone will relate to it in their lifetime, but I think it's like a book that, and I can see why they made it required reading, because I think for some teenagers that could be a very impactful book
Mm.
and like make them feel, understood and not alone. But if you haven't experienced certain things in your life, you're just sitting there like, I don't understand why this boy is acting like this.
Yeah.
So it's something I recommend people to read at different points in their life, even if they hate it, because you never know if it'll resonate with you later.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta do that.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get on that. My sister gave me a bunch of well, I mean, I have one for my birthday too that I haven't used yet because I have like what's it called? Amazon, the reading one.
Kindle?
Yeah, I have the Kindle, but I have Kindle Unlimited. So I have Kindle
Okay.
Unlimited. And then my sister also gave me like some gift cards, so I have lots of things to buy books. So I should pick that up soon,
Mm,
sooner rather than later. And we'll have a
I
talk about
recommend.
Catcher in the
Yeah.
Rye.
And if you don't like it, let me know, because I think he has other works that actually like I might like recommend even starting with some of his other works.
Okay.
But we'll talk later.
We'll talk later.
um,
Okay.
okay, next question for you.
Mhm.
If you could do any job in the world, regardless of money, necessary experience, or degree requirements, like if you could like wave a magic wand and you could do any job in the world, what would it be?
Hmm. Well, I mean, you know me. I think you know me, and I've said this a couple of times before, and I've talked to my students about this. Um, I don't really have any kind of desire or aspiration for a certain kind of job.
Hmm.
I just like doing different things. And I've never really, well, this is the longest time. So currently I'm a teacher and I've been a teacher for 4 years now. And it's the longest I've ever stuck with one job before, usually maximum 3 years. And I've kind of enjoyed all of the jobs that I've done.
Hmm.
So, and there's nothing really that I want to do, but I think I would prefer a kind of job that's very dynamic. So you're kind of doing like different things all the time, or you're like always on the move, or you're talking to a lot of different people. So I would maybe want to be either some kind of diplomat or like a world leader.
Hmm. I could see that actually.
Thank
I
you.
think you would make a really good diplomat.
Thanks.
Hmm.
Yeah, because like I mean, like you'd have to talk, like you talk to so many different people, you travel around all the time, you get to do all these like really cool experiences, and I think, I feel like the most important thing for a world leader, honestly, is to just be like a well-rounded person,
Hmm.
who is able to connect with people on a lot of different levels, understand people on a lot of different levels. And I think, like, at the end of my life, that's kind of like, I guess, like, I don't really have any sort of solid long term or even short term goals aside from just being that, like, a well rounded person and having a lot of different experiences under my belt, which I think is kind of like essential for either like a diplomat or a world leader. So I guess that's what I would do.
I also think a diplomat, it's usually helpful for them to be relatively cool headed
Yeah.
and relaxed in stressful situations,
Mm.
which I think you are to a T.
Oh, thanks.
Like if there's anyone that I want in a stressful situation with me, it's you because I know like no matter what's going on, you'll be like, yeah, it's okay. And I think that's like what you would want in a diplomat as well, right? When like there's a stressful or a heated situation, you just want someone that will be able to diffuse the tension.
Mm,
Mhm.
thanks. Yeah. I guess that's true. I am pretty laid back and just like, whatever, man, it is what it is. But I mean, of course, like, people have to be a little bit more proactive as well. But yeah, not you shouldn't have like knee-jerk reactions to things either, which yeah, I think I agree. I sort of well, I do. And I'm like, I'm not a perfect person and I do have those kinds of reactions where I'm just like immediately I want to react, but at the same time I'll stop myself and be like, wait a minute,
Mm,
let's think about this a little bit first. So, yeah,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. Cool, good question. My second question for you is what really makes you angry?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I'm very slow to anger in general. It's
Mhm.
not my first reaction. My first reaction is usually like if I'm stressed or like in a sort of situation of conflict, I tend to just cry rather than get angry. But what would make me angry? What's something that would oh, you know what I think actually makes me angry is lies of omission.
Okay.
Um
All right.
yeah, I think, like, when I can tell that someone's choosing not to tell me something,
Mhm,
or that they chose not to tell me something, or they sort of fudged around it. Because
mhm.
I mean, I think those actually make me angrier than an outright lie. Because if it's an outright lie, I'm like, "Well, at least you tried." But no, I think definitely lies of omission from people close to me. I mean, if it's, like, a stranger, I don't really care, but people close to me, I think that makes me angry. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
That's well, I don't lie usually, but if I
No,
have
you're
to,
very frank and upfront with people.
yeah, of course, and like especially like people that are close to me. But like if well, I had to do this a couple times, like back when I worked in like customer service jobs and stuff, because if something went wrong, you have to protect yourself and the company too.
Mm.
But I would try to be as honest as possible. But I always so I never outright lie, but sometimes, especially in those kinds of situations, I do that. I lie from omission, like with omission.
Well, and so this is the thing too. It's
Yeah.
like because I do it too, and I totally
Okay.
recognize that I do it. I think everyone does it, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that's like, and you know what? I think I had a teacher say once, like, the things that cause anger for you are usually like a reflection of like something that you don't like about your own personality.
Okay.
Like if it's like you seeing basically the part of yourself that you don't like in the other person. And so I think when people lie from omission, it's like it's something that like I do in situations and I hate when I do it. Like I know when I'm doing it and I'm like, I hate this. I don't feel good about this. And so I think, I don't know. I mean, we could have like an entire existential conversation about anger.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But we all do it.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, what makes me angry and maybe why it makes me angry. I don't know.
It is very sneaky.
Mm.
And then, it comes back to you later and you're like, well, I never actually said.
I know. And you know
It's a
what? That
cop
might
out.
be it, is because it's like harder to like call them out
Mm,
necessarily, because it's like a lie of omission. So it's not like they technically lied. I guess it depends on your definition of lie, but
mm.
it's, yeah, interesting. Okay. What is one thing that makes you sad?
That's a good question. Because I'm not often sad.
I know, which is kind of why I asked. I was like, I wonder if there's anything that makes her sad.
That's a good question. Because I think like, and it's not like there has been like cause for sadness in my life. Like I don't want people listening to get the wrong idea. Like my life is pretty good, honestly, but I mean like we've had a lot of like I remember when I was a kid I went to like funerals, it feels like every 6 months or something, because just always like because I have a huge family and a lot of my family members are older. So just like always going to funerals, like my great grandparent, like my great grandmothers both died, and like great uncles, great aunts, cousins, like one of my aunts on my mom's side died of cancer, and we went to her funeral, and it was like a really like sad time. And then one of my cousins died of cancer, and we saw her just before she died too, and it really broke my heart because she was in a lot of pain and suffering a lot at the end of her life. And like that was really, I guess, like that made me sad. And like sometimes I think about that, and it just kind of puts a lot of things into perspective. And like even like my dad passed away when I was in high school suddenly, and that was sad too. But I think, but at that point, like, but I wouldn't really say that I was that sad. I think like so. Okay, so sometimes like, especially in my life, when I do something really cool, I wish I could be like, wow, I really wish I could tell dad about this, because dad was a cool guy and he would
Mm,
really get a kick out of my life. But at the same time, it's like, I'm thankful that I like had the time that I had with my father and that I was able to make a good relationship with him while he was alive. So I'm not like, it makes me sad, but at the same time, I'm happy. So I'm not really
mm,
sad. So, and then of course, like, because I've experienced so much death in my life, it's sort of normalized it as well.
mm,
So, I can be sad, but at the same time, well, like same thing with my dad, I can be sad about it, but I can also be thankful, and it's normal instead of devastating.
yeah.
So even things like that, like I'm not super sad about. I think like the saddest thing probably like those what's her name? Sarah McLachlan like animal videos.
Oh, don't get me started. I'll cry thinking about that.
Maybe
In
those are
the
the saddest
arms of an
of an
angel.
angel. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh.
But I think seeing stuff like that. So I think wherever I think the things that make me the saddest are things that are preventable but still happen. So things like animal abuse, child
Mm,
abuse, poverty, those kinds of things make me really sad. Recently, so there's this lady who I guess was a homeless person, and in Korea, South Korea doesn't have that many homeless people, or not many that you see, I
mm,
suppose. But sometimes they do hang out like in subway stations and whatever. So there's like a couple in Gangnam Station, and there was this one lady who always sat on the stairs, like between like the Shinbundang line and like line number 2, and she would sell gums. I don't have you ever seen her? Do you remember?
yeah, I remember her.
She died a couple weeks ago.
No.
Yeah. And so and like that kind of made me really sad, because like it's just it was because like the last couple of years of her life, she was just sitting in the subway trying to make money by selling
Mm,
like gum, and like she wasn't taken care of, and like that makes me kind of sad, because it's something that's really preventable. So I think, the government in any country honestly should take care of their elderly
mhm,
people well. And even in Canada, so Canada, we're so proud of our healthcare and we're so proud of our social programs. But, recently, especially during coronavirus, it came out that a lot of our old age care homes are horribly, I don't think it's necessarily underfunding, but certainly that's something to do with it. But it's just like whoever's running them, it's terribly mismanaged. So
Okay.
there's not enough nurses, there's not enough care, there's not enough medicines for people. Like they were saying that like some of the old people were being, or they were left in bed all day, or they were like in dirty diapers all day, being force fed food. Some people would be like, and this is nothing new, but it became prevalent during coronavirus. But there's been stories where people have been in bed and they've developed like bed sores
Mm,
because they're not
mhm.
like, caretakers not like coming and getting them out of bed and like taking them around for a walk, and like they're not being cleaned properly. So they develop bed sores and then get infections and then die from those kinds of infections. And then I think that's just like, after such a long life of being productive and loved and loving, like that's the end for them. That kind of shit makes me sad.
Yeah, that makes me sad too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm so sad about the lady in the subway station.
Yeah. She passed away, but it was really sweet because I think, and that's another thing too, is it's kind of hypocrisy because after she passed away, they kind of made a little like memorial for her.
Mm,
So people were leaving like, some foods and like money and coffee and flowers for her, like at her spot. But I was like, only in death are people finally like caring about her that much.
yeah. And I think that's like unfortunately what we see a lot in society, right? Is like
Mm,
caring about something after the fact when we could have done something to prevent it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, number 3. Ooh, what's your strongest memory? And I reason why I picked those words strongest because I don't want like your best memory or your saddest
Hmm.
memory, but this is something that you like remember very well, like the feelings, uh, who was involved and the words said.
Hmm.
Yeah, something that like made a huge impression on you, maybe.
That's a really good question.
Mm,
I feel like I have to like ponder this and it's just going to be like moments of silence on the podcast.
that's fine. We edit that. Yeah.
Let me see. Well, okay, I have two that come to mind,
Mhm.
and one of them's more recent, so I feel like it's stronger because of its proximity to the present. But the other one is a childhood memory, and so I'm gonna go with that one just because I feel like if it's still strong up until this point, then there's probably a reason.
Mhm.
And the memory is camping. When I was, oh, I must have been 10. I was young. And there were a group of us camping. It was a dad daughter group. And so we would go camping, I want to say once a month. And I think this particular time we were in Joshua Tree in California. And where we were camping, it was desert. I mean, it's California, so it was desert. And we had set up our tents right at the base of this sort of what to a 10-year-old appeared to be a mountain, but looking back on it, I can rationalize it as just a very medium-sized hill. Uh, but to me, I was like, this is a mountain. And I think it must have been, so it was just for a weekend, and I think it was Saturday afternoon. Some of the dads had gone to do something. I don't know what. And so I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 dads watching the group of us. And it was all girls ranging from like 5 to 11 or something like that. And we really grew up together. We grew up camping together. So we were close friends, and I don't remember whose idea it was, but somebody had the idea like, let's climb this mountain because why not?
Yeah.
And I mean, we were very adventurous. And so we asked one of the dads, like, can we climb up this mountain? And he probably looked at the hill and was like, yeah, you go climb that mountain. But to us, we're like, we're going to climb this mountain. And so it really was like, I sort of think the difficulty was probably similar to Umyongsan
Okay.
in terms of like that hill, but there was no trail going up it. So it was just sort of like trailblazing. This must have been my first like instance of trailblazing.
Aw.
And so we just started like climbing up it. I remember we got to this one point where we had like chosen basically at one point you could have either gone left or right, and we chose to go right. And it led us to this huge slab of rock that we just couldn't climb because we were
Mhm.
10-year-olds. And we were like trying everything. We were like trying to rock climb. We were trying to like bolster each other up, like do like put people on like our shoulders to get to like get them above the rock. We had like all of these strategies and nothing was working. And like the dads were at the base of the hill just like laughing at us. But like it was like a really fun, I think, experience. And the first time where it was like, this is an adventure, like a true, like unscripted adventure. No trail, no one saying, go here, do this. glue the macaroni here. It was like us just deciding what we wanted to do.
Cool.
And we didn't end up making it over the rock slab. We ended up going back down, and then one of the dads took us, and we ended up like hiking up sort of like from the base
Mhm.
along the ridge all the way to the peak. Yeah, I think that's my strongest memory.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny too, like what you were saying about unscripted and stuff, because there's a lot of research that says that having unstructured play
Mm-hmm.
is beneficial, like more beneficial to children than having that structured play. Like there was like this huge movement a couple of years ago for play, like especially outdoor play areas that didn't have, like the swings and the slide and the jungle
Oh
gym. And
yeah.
yeah, it was just kind of like here's a log, here's some sticks, go nuts.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember actually reading research about that when I was must have been my senior year of college, and I was working in a preschool, and so we had to learn about early childhood development.
Mhm.
And one of the things was all about, it was indoors, but it was dramatic play, having dramatic play areas where the kids basically could make the rules, and like having things that weren't necessarily like because like I think like you think of those like little like miniature home sets with like the little pots and pans, and they're like
Mhm.
that's like all good and well, but also have things that like don't necessarily go in like your
Mm.
like sort of like scripted dramatic play area, like having sticks or having things that like just seem to have no purpose, and like letting the kids create the story, because it does so much for their development and like their ability to like be creative, imagination, all of those skills. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Okay,
Hmm.
let's see. Okay, Kaitlyn,
Yes.
what was the biggest lesson you've learned this past year?
Oh, good question. The biggest well, I mean, this past year has been challenging for a lot of reasons. So I was set to leave, and I think at the beginning whenever we postponed our trip, and I made the decision to stay in Korea again after I was so excited and so ready to be gone from Korea. You asked me before, like, when have you been sad? I think I was a little sad, certainly
Mm,
disappointed, and I like, and all year, even up until this point, I feel like I'm kind of in a liminal space because I'm neither here nor am I gone.
mm-hmm,
But this past month, I've been unemployed and I've had a lot of time to do nothing and to just think about stuff. And it's what I've been thinking about is just where I am, what I'm doing where I am, what I would be doing in another place, and just really kind of reflecting on myself and my situation. And I've come to the conclusion that it's not bad.
mm-hmm,
So, even though I've been kind of in a funk, I guess, and like feeling, like I said, like neither here nor there, it's good. Like, I have a lot of friends here. I have a really good job here. And if I went back home, like I would probably be like in a worse situation potentially. And it's not like I'm disconnected from anyone. Thankfully, we have the internet, and we have Skype, and we have Zoom, and we can still kind of continue on as before. So I think the lesson that I've learned is just to be more thankful and more present in my
mm,
current life and then what I have, instead of like focusing more on, yeah, and like kind of letting go of things.
mm-hmm,
I guess like letting go of like negative emotions and letting go of situations that you can't control. And also, I think like making the best of the decisions that you've already made,
mm-hmm.
sort of. Because I think like this year too, I've been always like wondering, like, oh, is this the right decision? Is this the right decision? And it's like, well, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I've kind of made this decision now, and I've got to, make the best of it and then just try to enjoy myself in whatever it is that I'm doing, which has kind of always been my philosophy, but it's just, this year because everything has gone so not wrong, but everything has gone so not according to plan that I sort of lost sight of it. So I guess that's the lesson, or the lesson that I've learned, or maybe the lesson that I've relearned.
I think that's a good lesson.
Thanks.
It's
Yeah.
like a good, you're right. I think this year has been a good reminder for a
Yeah.
lot of people
Hmm.
on things like that.
Yeah, just let it go, let it go.
This podcast is just turning into a musical.
There's always one, like in every series, you have to have like one musical episode. You
I know. We should. We should actually make that a thing. Nore Bong podcast edition.
Oh, I'm down. I'm in.
Mhm.
All right, so my next question for you. What would you change about yourself if you could?
I was like looking at my list because I was like, did I write that question for you? I almost did.
Oh, wow.
um,
Close. Great minds think
okay, if
alike.
I could change one thing about myself, it's hard because I think this past year I like made the active goal to like stop trying to change things about myself. Not necessarily like all things, but like trying to change things beyond my control.
Hmm.
Because that used to be something that I think, a lot of people have experienced it where you just like, it's very easy to like look in a mirror or like, even a metaphorical mirror at yourself and just be like, why are you like this? Why do you do this? So I guess like in a way, like if I could change one thing, it would be to, I think, what I would do? I would take maybe not all, but most of my anxiety away because I think I do get in my head about a lot of things and I can be very socially anxious
Hmm.
and worry about how other people perceive me or perceive something I did, or if someone feels slighted by something I said or did. And then I just like will go into this like tailspin, spiral deep dive into like, I don't know, a garbage dump of emotions, which is unproductive, right? Because in most instances, the person isn't thinking twice about what you said or did or
Mm.
anything about you really. Like people are so in their own heads that they really don't spend that much time worrying about you. And so I think if there was one thing I could change, it would be just to like take that, I guess, part of my personality maybe. I don't know how you would word that, but just to, like stop doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. To just like be more chill.
I wish it was that easy. Just like snap
Like I
your
wish
fingers and be like, yes,
if
stop
I could, I
it.
would take a metaphorical chill pill.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I actually had that question written at one point though. I think I
Oh,
crossed it out and changed it, but similar minds, clearly.
so
Okay.
clearly.
Your question. We're on number 5, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Keep track of this, Sam. Okay. Focus. Okay, Kaitlyn.
Mhm.
I'm actually like, I think this is a kind of fun question.
Okay.
Okay. If your life was a book, would it be a tragedy, drama, or comedy, or some other genre? Graphic novel, poetry, play. I don't know. If you had to pick a genre for your life, what would it be?
My first reaction, I guess, is I think it'd be kind of like a dark comedy because it would have a lot of like, funny things, like a lot of like really weird shit has happened to me in my life. And the reason why it's funny is it's cuz it's more like my reactions to stuff. Like even I realize like when I step outside of myself and I look at my reaction in like certain situations, I'm like, why did I do that? Like, so what's happening is not funny objectively, but my reaction's always funny. But that's
Okay.
why it's kind of a dark comedy, and it should be some kind of, oh, what's the word? I don't even know how to say this, but it would be like some kind of like psychological aspect as well, or like some kind of like metaphorical or metaphysical look on like the human condition. I think.
Okay, like a psychological study.
Yeah, yeah, but as like a dark comedy. And then like whenever you finish reading the book, you just like feel weird. That's
That's going to be on like the back cover. You finish the book and you just feel weird.
But yeah, has that ever happened where you've read something? Oh shoot, there was books like okay, like what's it called? Metamorphosis
Oh
by
yeah.
Kafka. You've just
Mhm.
finished it and you feel weird.
Yeah.
That's what my book would be.
The first time I read that book, I read it because I was going to see an opera or a play. I think it was an opera,
Uh-huh.
based off the book, and I had never read it before. And so
It's
my friend was
weird.
like, read it. It's like really short. You can finish it in a day. And I remember I read it and I was like, what the like bleep is this?
Mhm.
And then I went to the play and I was like, what the bleep is this? It's weird. So that's the feeling that you would get
That's
after reading Caitlyn's life in book form.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like we've just come up with like all the advertising. You feel weird. You ask yourself, what the bleep is this?
Caitlin, a
You beg
biography.
yourself to read Metamorphosis next time instead.
Because I remember, yeah, because Metamorphosis made me feel like that. And there was another short story or novella that I read too. And I think it was required reading for high school again or something. I can't remember. So I read that, and then I also read this other one, and it was about, gosh, it was about this woman who I think she was like a governess or something, and it was kind of like a period thing, and I don't remember, but it gave me that same feeling. And same thing when I read like A Thousand Years of Solitude or 100 Years of Solitude.
1,000, I think.
Thousand Years of Solitude. Yeah.
I think.
Like there's a couple of books on like the Oprah's book club list that I read and when I was in high school or yeah, high school. Like yeah, like why did I read such weird things in high school? But so I read that one and like at the end I was like, what the fuck? And then and I read this other one called like Mother of Pearl, which was also on the Oprah's reading list where like this girl has like this baby with her half brother, but she didn't know it. And like that also gave me that kind of feeling. So yeah, that would be and I love those books, obviously, because I've read
Mm.
quite a few of them, apparently. And I think that's how reading my life would go. Anyway, I recommend those books to anybody who's like listening. So my next question for you again is what is the best gift you've ever been given? Who gave it
Ooh.
to you? What was it? How did it make you feel?
I feel like I've been given really good gifts in the past, and I feel like I'm gonna like say something and then like hours later be like, no, there was a better gift.
Hmm.
This is so hard. Oh, I know what it was. Oh, it was my happy blanket. Where is it? I have it somewhere around here. I have a happy blanket. I call it my happy blanket.
Hmm.
It was for my high school graduation. My best friend's family. So I think it was like her and her mom made it together. They crocheted this just like magnificent wool sort of granny square blanket with
Hmm.
my dorm room colors.
Oh,
And it's
cool.
made with like that thick wool that you make like scarves with
Nice.
with. And so it's super warm. And I had it with me all 4 years of college. And I called it my happy blanket because whenever I was stressed, I would just like wrap it around myself and I
Hmm.
would just immediately feel happy. It was almost like getting a hug from like my best friend and her family. That's sort of like how I thought about it. Because I went to college on the opposite side of the country, but it was the thought that went into that because it's a big blanket. Like it's a big, heavy blanket that took a lot of time to make and was just like very thoughtful using the colors of my dorm room and like every stitch was just made with love and you can like feel it in it and it's still like I will never get rid of this blanket because it's my happy blanket. So yeah, I think that was the um best gift I've ever been given.
That's really sweet. Yeah, those
Mm-hmm.
handmade things and things that are made with lots of love like that, I think are always the kind of best.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
Okay, for your final question,
Okay.
I think I've asked this to you before because it's sort of like I think my one of my go-to road trip questions, but we're going to ask it again so that I don't know, you can either reassess your answer or share it with the world. Okay, if you had to pick 3 musical artists to listen
Mhm.
to for the rest of your life, who would they be? And you
Holy
can't
shit.
listen to anyone else, but you can listen to anything they've created.
This is a really hard question because I like music. And there's like a couple of musicians, I guess, that I do enjoy, but because you're saying artists too, because like a lot of like, so my favorite albums, so here's the thing too, because my favorite albums, like I might like one album by that artist, but I don't necessarily like the rest of their stuff.
Mm. I mean, we can modify and you could say like your 3 favorite albums if you wanted to. It would be
Okay, that
more
makes
limiting, but
yeah, it's more limiting, but it's really hard for me because I don't listen to pop music. I enjoy pop music, like whenever I'm like, wow, this song like smacks, and I'm like, this is really good. But I prefer, I guess, like my favorite music is like alternative stuff from like the early 2000s, I guess. And then my favorite albums, like the artists, like the bands don't exist anymore. You know? So it's, like, really hard
yeah.
for me. Yeah, but so some of my favorite albums, so I love, what's it called? Welcome to the Night Sky by Wintersleep. That's probably my number 1 favorite album. And it's so Wintersleep is this band from Nova Scotia, and but I don't like well, their other album's okay, but I don't like it that much. And they had like one radio single and it was like whatever. But the rest of the like the album like as a whole, like listening to it like the whole thing is just so good. So that's my number 1 favorite album. So I guess Winter Sleep would be on my list even though they don't exist anymore. Number 2 would be well, I guess it's like another album, but I like Lemon Parade by Tonic, which
Okay.
also doesn't exist anymore.
Hey, their music still exists.
Yeah. So Winter Sleep, Tonic. What else? Okay, but then I guess like my last one, it'll have to be recently I've been listening to them a lot, probably Seether. But again, I don't think they exist anymore. But it's this like alternative band from South Africa. And they had like a couple of really good songs. Do you remember Evanescence?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like Amy Lee and stuff. Like she, I think, and the main guy from Seether were like shacking up a bit, and they had like a couple, like one hit together that they, yeah. So I guess yeah. So Seether, Tonic, Winter Sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is, folks. The definitive list of who Kaitlyn would listen to.
And whoever, if people know those three bands, like the albums that I'm talking about, they're going to be like, why? Weird choices, but okay. I don't know. Yeah, because music is something. Because I know it's like some people just have, when they're asked that question, they'd be able to answer it really easily. Like, oh, this, and this, like totally. Like people who are into music are usually very passionate about it, and they think a lot about it, and they have like their answers already. But for me, like, I don't know. I like music. I appreciate music, but at the same time, I'm not that passionate about it.
Okay.
I think, because I'm just like, yeah, everything is okay. And I like a lot of different kinds of music. It's the same thing with movies. Like people who ask me like what my favorite movie is I can't really answer that question. Same thing with like, I guess like bands. What's your favorite band? Well, I can't really answer that question. When I'm in a different mood, I want to listen to something different or I want to watch something different.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard question for me to answer.
Well, you did a good job.
Thank you. I was like, that was really tough. Okay. And then my last one for you is, what's your biggest fear?
Oh, I know it. I don't want to say it.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay. Are we? Well, okay. So I have like, real life fears, physical things, and then I guess like the sort of philosophical fears. But I think my biggest fear is the philosophical fear. And it's the fear of being left.
Ooh.
I get like really panicky about it. Even when I like rationally know that it's like, not for any reason. People moving away will send me sometimes into a tailspin. And it like consumes, what I was talking about earlier, like a lot of my social anxiety is like people leaving, which I think is like part of what makes me overthink and overanalyze social interactions because I want to do everything possible to avoid that outcome. So yeah, that's my biggest fear. It's like one that like many years of therapy will hopefully fix one day. But yeah, fear of people leaving.
Okay. Well, I feel like I got to know you a lot better.
Same.
Yeah.
I hope everyone listening enjoyed. I hope you're not scared off by us. We tried going deep, but keeping it interesting, intriguing. There you go. I feel like our listeners probably know us better than some of our friends do now.
Definitely.
So welcome into the inner workings of Kaitlyn and Sam's brains.
And it's still just the surface. I'm sure like every person, we are also layered. So thank you for joining us again. If there's anything that you guys want to share, or if you have any questions for us, please send us an email, or you can leave a comment below and we'll try to get back to you.
If there's anything you want to hear us talk about too, let us know. If you're like, I really want to go into like your existential theories on ghost or something like that, like we'll do it. Just send us a little note some which way and we'll make a podcast about it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love talking about ghosts. Please email me. Ghosts, the afterlife. I've got tons of theories about that stuff. I'm down to talk about it anytime or anything else. Of course, I'm an open book.
And then, as always, if you're able and willing, please donate to Get Over It. You can find our donation link on our website to help support Cool Earth and the Center for Reproductive Rights.
And if you are a small business, we also are interested in partnering with you. So for $15, we will talk about you on our podcast. And again, all of those proceeds go towards really cool charities, Cool Earth and Center for Reproductive Rights.
Catch us next time in 2 weeks here on the Get Over It podcast.
See you then. That's it for today, folks.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
And as always, please support this work by subscribing and donating to our cause at www.teamgetoveryit.com.
Donors get access to specific content like stickers, t-shirts, and postcards from our journey.
You can donate for as little as $5 and the benefits build from there.
Go to our website for more information.
Or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Team Get Over It.
Thanks for listening.
And catch us next time on Get Over It.